Okay, we're in slide number 40 of week one, American national government here. Let's talk about some of the limits and power of America's ideals. Okay, obviously, as we're talking about equality, have there been many inconsistencies within America? Yeah, obviously. That is the fly in the ointment in America. Again, what comes to mind readily is race. It's interesting because I spent some time in England. The Brits, their big problem is class. The higher classes, monarchy, aristocracy, and the lower classes. In America, it has been race. Okay, so obviously you had slavery, you had Jim Crow laws, different things like that obviously were problematic. We fought an entire Civil War addressing the issue. We created 3 Civil War amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, to address the issue of slavery and discrimination and things of that nature. And we still have issues with it, okay? What we've got to understand, and again, we'll develop this a little bit later when we talk about the creation of the Constitution, but the founders did try to set slavery on the course of ultimate extinction. In Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 of the Constitution, it says there's no new importation of persons after 1808. Okay, that's a reflection of slavery. Okay, they thought if you didn't import slaves, you're going to basically eliminate slavery in America. Okay, that's what they thought. Obviously, naively, that was inaccurate, but they were trying. Okay, it's also interesting that the word slavery was not even used in the Constitution, and that was by design because they didn't want to legitimize the word or the institution, and so that's why they eliminated it. The other thing we've got to realize is, and I can't develop it fully now, but we tend to fall prey to something historians call the concept of presentism. Okay, is that we tend to look at issues within a nation, okay, with the eyes, with modern eyes from today. And we don't put ourselves in the position of that moment and all that was going on and all the complexities to fail to understand all that was going on. And again, we'll develop this as we talk about the 3/5 compromise in the Constitution, some of the challenges. But one of the challenges that the framers of the Constitution had was they were tasked to basically create a constitution. They were not a deliberative legislative body creating laws. Okay, so consequently, when they dealt with the issue of slavery in the Constitutional Convention, they were not empowered to deliberate and discuss the issue of slavery. And so that's one of the reasons why they didn't go full tilt into it. Okay, there was another reason too, is because a lot of the southern states that were pro-slavery, had they began to really press the issue, they probably would not have been able to create the Constitution because all of the southern states would have bolted. Okay, these are some layers of complexity within the slavery issue at the Constitutional Convention that we've got to be aware of and we've got to take into consideration. Again, I'm not justifying anything because obviously slavery is wrong. But what I am saying is that we've got to realize that kind of complexity there. Another issue that you may not be aware of is the Northwest Ordinance that was passed in 1787 by the Congress, which was basically addressing how do you bring territories into America and make them states. Okay, one of the things they created when they drafted the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 was no new state will be admitted that could be a slave state. So they thought between that and Article 9 of the Constitution, or Article 1, Section 9, they thought they had it dealt with. Okay, so again, we're openly acknowledging the inconsistencies, and yet there was some complexity to it. Okay, another issue within America's ideals was the idea of immigration discrimination. Okay, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 of the Constitution says that the Congress has the power to establish a uniform rule of nationalization. Okay, it should be naturalization. I'm actually changing the slide right now. I hate typos. How about you? the idea of discrimination with particular groups coming into the country. Okay, is immigration a hot button issue in America right now? Yeah, sure it is. It's obviously playing second and third fiddle to this pandemic, but nevertheless, it's an issue. What's interesting is the criteria of immigration at America's founding is very different than what it is today. Okay, they actually had 3 criteria for what would allow an immigrant or someone seeking to become an American to come into the country. Number 1, the principle of equality, is that citizenship matters. They wanted to make sure that no non-citizen, no immigrant or illegal alien would actually enjoy the same or greater privileges than citizens. Okay, think allowing illegal immigrants into the country right now and allowing them to get a free education or allowing them to get free health care. Okay, in other words, they're enjoying the same benefits as American citizens. Does that violate the principle of equality? According to the founders, yes. Okay, that's a criteria. A second criteria is the criteria of sovereignty, is that the Constitution matters. Is this idea that if you are in the country as an illegal immigrant, you are violating the Constitution. You're violating the sovereignty of this country. You either need to basically begin the process of becoming a citizen or you need to leave. Okay, that was a consideration that was there at the founding. Okay, and a third consideration was this idea of character. Is do you have integrity? Are you willing to adhere to the laws of the land? Are you willing to adhere to Republican principles? This idea of learning to allow the rule of law to hold sway, to be a law-abiding citizen, okay? To understand our system of government, to become a citizen, okay? Things of that nature. In other words, if you're in the country as an illegal alien, you're violating the principle of character, okay? You need to leave. Okay, how interesting is it that those 3 principles or criteria for immigration are not used at all or not even talked about by your average politician today? Again, kind of interesting to think through here, okay? Here's an example of this idea of character which counts in being a citizen in the United States. Okay, this is George Washington's speech to the Volunteer Association of Ireland in 1783. Again, George Washington is speaking as the general of the Continental Army. The citizens of the United States of America have the right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy worthy of imitation. All citizens alike, liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more the toleration is spoken of as it were the indulgence of one class of citizen than another enjoyed their inherent and natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens, giving it on all occasions their effectual support. So again, he's concluding, trying to tell people, if you're going to be, again, he's giving a speech to these volunteers that were Irish, that were serving in the American military for in the war, that listen, if you want to be here, okay, comport yourself as a good citizen, okay? Be a person of character. These are the types of people we want in this country, okay? The immigration debate is very controversial for some. The best analogy I give students is this. Compare immigration to your body's immune system, okay? Is every germ, every virus going to be allowed into your body if you've got a healthy immune system? And the answer is no, okay? Only that which is going to comport itself as a good citizen is going to be allowed into your body. If not, your antibodies, your immune system is going to kick them out because, again, you're trying to foster health within the body, okay? In the same way, in the body politic is what an old school version of what it means to have a government. The body politic needs to have antibodies, needs to have an immune system that allows good citizens or those that would comport themselves with character to come in and those who would not comport themselves with character to be removed to foster the health of the body, okay? Maybe that analogy helps you, but that is how the founders thought about immigration and how to foster a healthy society, okay? Concluding here on America's inconsistencies. One of my favorite presidents of all time is Abraham Lincoln, because of what he did in keeping and bringing America back together again in the midst of a civil war. And one of the key things that he did in the midst of slavery, in the midst of racism, in the midst of war, in the midst of the total breakdown of America, is he pointed Americans back to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, okay? And he tried to help them to understand that these ideals are what we hold up, that hold us and all future generations accountable to them. Okay, we can look at all the inconsistencies of America's founders, some of whom were slave owners. Thomas Jefferson, who coined the phrase "all men are created equal," owned slaves. Okay, again, maybe an analogy will help you. If I come up to you and I keep telling you, stealing's wrong. Stealing's wrong. Don't steal. Don't ever steal. Stealing's wrong. But as I'm telling you stealing's wrong, I'm reaching behind you and I'm pickpocketing you and I'm stealing from you. Okay? When that happens, what is nullified? Okay? The principle, stealing's wrong, or the person who's stealing. Okay? If you think it through, it's the person who's stealing, not the principle. The principle remains true for all time. Stealing's wrong. Don't ever steal. It is morally reprehensible to steal from somebody else, okay? That same, again, if you could borrow from that and understand where I'm getting at here, the principles of the Declaration of Independence, one of which is all men are created equal, is actually something that holds all individuals and all future generations of Americans accountable, and literally has created many of the equalities we have in this country, okay? In other words, the principle remains that people are flawed and people cannot necessarily live up to certain ideals, but the ideals remain. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, founders and what they taught, forget about all that. What's most current right now, that's most relevant. You've got to understand that these principles are timeless and they hold us accountable and they point the way forward for us as we move forward as a country. This is exactly what Abraham Lincoln was talking about in his letter to Henry Pierce and others that he wrote in 1859. He said this, Abraham Lincoln is pointing to Thomas Jefferson, okay? All honor to Jefferson, to the man who, in the concrete pressures of a struggle for national independence by a single people, had the coolness, forecast, and capacity to introduce into a merely revolutionary document an abstract truth applicable to all men at all times. What's he talking about? He's talking about an abstract truth, the principles of the Declaration of Independence. An abstract truth, the principle that all men are created equal. And he said, to embalm it there, that today and in all coming days, it shall be a rebuke and a stumbling block to the very harbingers of reappearing tyranny and oppression. Okay, so again, this idea of the principles of the Declaration of Independence, though not adhered to by generation after generation of America, they nonetheless remain fixed. They remain an abstract truth applicable to all men at all times and hold us and future generations accountable. Are we emulating this value of equality? Okay, so again, a powerful truth there that you should be aware of. And I think I just helped you for a discussion post question. All right, I'll stop there.